Are classically trained singers really any better than contemporary singers? In this video, I'm going to be talking about the differences between the two types of singing, and I'm going to be dispelling some of the myths that I've heard over the years. Controversial. My name's Carrie Griffiths, and I've been a singer for more than 20 years, for almost 24 years now at the time of this recording, and I've been teaching people to sing. I've been a singing teacher and voice coach for almost 19 years now. So I've been studying, training, singing and using my voice and helping other people with their voices for a long time. I've performed in more than 30 countries. I've had 3 top 10 albums, including a #1, and I'm an award-winning voice coach. I'm always learning more and more about singing and about the voice, as most voice coaches and singing teachers do, if they're serious about what they do. Now, something that I've heard many times is, I spoke to this singer, she's classically trained, and she told me such and such and such. And I've even been told that I've had those types of conversations with my own students where I've taught them something, they've gone and spoken to a classically trained singer, and then come back and said, oh, actually, Carrie, you're right, I spoke to a classically trained singer. Okay, the thing is, I am classically trained. Okay, when I first started singing, I started with musical theatre and pop. Then I did 3 years of classical training, and then I moved to contemporary. So I know what a classical singer is going to tell you is no different from what I'm going to tell you. Okay, the only difference between a classical singer and me is if they haven't had any other type of training, they may or may not know and understand contemporary techniques. So, first of all, let's start with classical singing. It's called classical because it was the traditional type of Western singing, okay, Westernized people. So years and years ago, classical singing, okay, it was like choral singing. I mean, there's lots and lots of different types. This type of singing uses lots of head voice, thinning of the vocal cords, and the type of upward head voice resonance. Okay, some classicals, excuse me. Some classical singers will also use a mixed voice, and a few will use belting, but belting isn't really a classical technique. It's more like using the head voice. There's my alarm. Okay, contemporary singers, on the other hand, they use lots of different types of techniques. So they will use chest voice, head voice, mixed or blended voice, twang, and belting. Contemporary singers also use different types of embellishments like vocal fry, which classical singers don't use. Some types of other genres like soul, gospel, rock, they'll use the growl, which classical singers definitely don't do. And then of course we've got other types of rock and metal where they'll also use screaming. So whether that's like a growl scream or there are different types of screaming. I can't think of them all right now off the top of their head. I'm learning about them right now. I'm actually learning to scream, which is really fun, with my teacher Rocky. So go and check her out. There's a plug for you there, Rocky. So with classically trained singers, classical singers and opera singers, classical singing and classical music and opera music are different. I'm not going to go into that now, but classical singers can sing opera and opera singers can sing classical. What most professional, semi-professional or professional classical singers can't do is then go and sing contemporary songs using contemporary techniques and adding those different embellishments. And the reason is that to become a professional classical singer or opera singer takes many years of specialised training, as does contemporary singing. if we look at the history of both, as I said, classical singing is the traditional westernized singing from the Western world, and contemporary pop singing, pop, rock, jazz, blues, soul, they all come from gospel. Okay, if you go back, it comes from rock and roll comes from blues comes from gospel, and of course gospel comes from the African American churches. Okay, so there you'll see more full voices. You'll hear more fuller voices. The resonance is different. The vocal folds will be thicker even in those higher ranges, okay, because they're using different techniques. So they're using belting, twang, growling for sure, fry, screams. You know, there's a lot of types of screams in gospel music that you don't get in classical music and in classical singing. So, are classically trained singers better than contemporary singers? It really depends on the singer. So, how good or how masterful or how much better one singer is than another isn't down to the style. It's down to a combination of natural ability, training, and of course good old-fashioned practice, and of course good vocal health. Good vocal health is very, very, very important. If you don't have good vocal health, you won't be a good singer. You might have the right techniques, you might be able to do different things with your voice, but without good vocal health, you won't have a voice. So there'll be no voice there. So I hope that's cleared up some of the myths, and I hope that's put to bed some of the debates that I see online and in real life about classical singing versus contemporary singing. I love all of it. As I say, I trained classically for 3 years. When I transitioned into contemporary singing, it was very, very difficult. There are other singers who have done the same, like Charlotte Church. I don't really think she's singing at the moment, but she was a child classical singer. Kelly Clarkson, she trained classically. Mariah Carey, I believe her mum was a classically trained singer, which means I haven't investigated and studied her voice so much, but with her mum being a classically trained singer, it's likely that she did that type of training. And when you listen to her voice, she doesn't really do a lot of those kinds of screams, growls, and using fry and that kind of stuff. So it's more on the classical side, although she sings contemporary songs. Male singers, a lot of metal singers, a lot of rock singers are classically trained. Freddie Mercury was classically trained, and then he transitioned into contemporary and used all of those embellishments that I've talked about. So go and have a look for yourself. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that it's answered some questions that you may or may not have had, and maybe you just know a little bit more about the different types of singing now. My name's Carrie Griffiths, and I will see you very soon. Stay hydrated. Ciao.